Hello and welcome to Mike's Garage. First thing I have to remember to say, if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. And when you do, be sure and hit the notification bell so we'll be notified. And should you feel moved to do so, you could give us a couple of likes. That would be nice too. Anyway, thank you for that. I got home tonight. This is ice cream on my shirt. I was out with a buddy of mine. His wife was in the hospital today, and so I went to babysit him. And I figured the best way to babysit someone is to take them out for ice cream. So we went out and had ice cream. And I got home, and cameraman Mike is in my garage, and he's saying, "You said you were going to show people how to do the seat post." And I went, "Tonight?" He said, "Tonight." So here we are at this juncture, as it were. Okay, the thing with the seat post is it's one of those very, very misunderstood parts. And the reason I say it's misunderstood is because people don't read up on them and understand how beautifully they work. People say, "God, I could never ride a rigid frame." Well, maybe you couldn't if you didn't set it up the way the factory intended, because the factory intended to give you a comfortable ride. And this is a 52 pan. This is built right after the Korean War when all the highways were going all the way across the country and people were doing it on these spring seat posts or plunger assemblies. Anyway, so people don't know how to set them. So the first place you go is to your service manual. Mike, can you? Okay, this is my Panhead, and it's my Panhead service manual, 38 to 57. And the seat post is in a lot of the other manuals too. Almost all the old manuals have the seat post. I said almost because there might be one that doesn't. I don't know. I've never seen one. They all have it in here. And this diagram shows you, and here is a seat post. This diagram shows you the distances to be setting this thing. Now here's the top part of the post, and the bottom part here screws into it. So there's a couple of springs in the top, rebound springs in here. And you've got this whole system of springs. It's like an early version of progressive suspension. I mean, it's really an impressive way to do things. It's quite an apparatus. The main thing that I wanted to show, here's the part numbers for all the springs, which you can get from these companies that make reproduction parts. And here's the distances. This is the length you want to adjust these particular springs down here because they all float on here. So you want to get the length right for the weight of the rider. In other words, I want to adjust this to 12 inches. Let's see, for what weight a guy? I can't barely see it. Oh, here you go. Here we go, 12 inches for 150 to 180 pound rider. And this one here is 11 inches for 180 to 220 pound rider. Now, this is not to make anyone uncomfortable, but when these motorcycles were built, people were smaller. And I do have the advantage of being a featherweight myself. But my point is, these are made for everybody. This is for the average person. And what you want to do is, if you can't get enough strength to it, there are helper springs that you can add even over the outside of the post for people who are bigger, just larger people. Anyway, so this thing should be taken out and cleaned up every once in a while and lubed because it slides up and down in the seat post of the frame. When you hear people talking about frames, they'll say quite often, "Does it have a seat post in it?" They're speaking of this tube that goes down in the frame. This is a 52. Anyway, at the very top of the tube where this slides in and this piece rides up and down, there's a bronze bushing that goes in here. And we removed that bushing because it was worn out. It was not easy to get out. When I ordered the bushing, I ordered tried to order a tool for removing and replacing that bushing. Well, they no longer stock that particular tool, so I took my slide hammer and I put it in there and I got it out. It came right out. It wasn't too, I mean, it's a press fit. So we're going to put a new one in there. This is the only company I know of that makes them. This is a Colony part, and this is the bushing. You can see it well, I hope. And it has two holes in it that are quite important because there's a Zerk fitting, a grease fitting that goes right here in the frame, and this bushing is inside there. So we're going to put the bushing or the Zerk fitting back in, but with the Zerk fitting out, I'll be able to feel this relief here in this bushing and know that I have it in far enough. Actually, just right even is about the way it needs to be. Occasionally, you'll find a frame that's really beat up here from somebody slamming on the frame. I want to say again, when these things are set properly, they're pretty comfortable. And I've gone over some pretty big bumps. And when I did, I wasn't able to bottom my seat. I've never bottomed it out since I finally got it adjusted properly. So what we're going to do, without talking about it any further, I think we're going to install this bushing. So, excuse me a moment here. Get a little grease. And I put grease on it. Now, I don't have this special installation tool, so I'm going to wing it. Now, there's two holes in this thing. And the way I really like them to go is across from each other. Then in my mind, it's all getting an even amount of lube. I don't really think it matters because when you get enough grease in it, and if you're like me, you have a tendency to grease the heck out of things. Okay, now I'm going to start that by hand. And I'm going to tap it in with my beat-to-death rawhide mallet, because I couldn't find my new one tonight. And the neighbor's dog is upset about something. So I was going to put those holes across from each other, and there they are. And there it is. And we're going to tap this in. Well, I hate to say it, but it's not going in as even as I wanted, as easy as I wanted. It just evened out. It just hit straight. There we go. Actually, I want it to go in nice and tight so that it stays put. That dog's going to drive me nuts. Just for the record, that's not my dog. My dog has good manners. That's enough, boys. Was that primitive enough for everybody? I certainly hope so. Now I have a seal driver here, and I'm hoping it doesn't break because it's just a plastic seal driver, but I have the right size one here. Oh, that's working nicely. Now, like I said, we want this pretty much about even with the top of the frame here. Again, remember that this section of the frame gets beat up pretty badly. So we're going to go just a little more, which I'd say is, yeah, just a hair more, just a little bitty bit. That's where I wanted it. To me, that appears to be in about right. Take this little screwdriver and see how it feels. Yep, it's into the slot in there, which means when I put the grease fitting back in there, and I just happen to have one right here, Now, in case anyone forgets, I've showed these before, and the thread is a 1/16 National Pipe thread, NPT. National, I think. Okay. The Zerk fitting doesn't want to start. But guess what? It's on there. Okay. Now, normal maintenance when you're lubing your chassis, I think I showed this. I don't know if I did or not. But there is the factory position for that Zerk fitting. And now we can put the post in place. Here is the post. I'm going to hold this up and do it. No, I'm not. I'm going to grease this. I'm going to get a bunch of grease on my hand. And I'm going to grease this thing. Now, this thing has been greased a lot over the years. Probably more by me than anyone who ever owned it before me. Because I like grease. And someone's going to say, what kind of grease is that? And I'm going to say it's trailer bearing grease. And the reason I use trailer bearing grease is because it's not as easily affected by water. And not that I like to ride my bike in the rain, or that I ride through any creek beds or things like that. Okay, so I put enough lube on this so that it will slide well into this bushing. And there it is. Now I'm going to check it with my hand and see if it came through where it was supposed to. Yes, it did. Well, you know, I might as well just put that nut and washer on there right now. Okay, do we want to see this nut? This is a step nut that goes through the frame. Can you see it in that? I hope you can. And this is the lock washer that goes on it. And like I said, this keeps that stem of that plunger centered. So I'm going to put it on the threads now. I'm pretty excited. This is going to be quite an improvement in Baby Doll. She's needed this bushing, this new bushing for a while. And everybody asking for me to do this video on seat posts, well, thank you. I wasn't going to get it done. I'm sorry. I just hit the camera with my wrench. You know, I think the post is turning. So I'm going to put a screwdriver in it here. And I'm going to try to turn it down below, and I think it's going to do it just fine. There it goes. Let me get this thing settled where I want it. Actually, it will turn, even when you're done. Okay, there it is. And it's straight enough. There is the seat post. Now, a couple videos ago, a few back, I put the buddy seat on this bike instead of the solo saddle. Truthfully, the solo saddle is the most comfortable. Now, I know that we're all a little different, but that solo saddle, Bob Ross, it was an old motorcycle mechanic I knew years and years ago. He had a shop in Gardena, California. He did a lot of early model stuff, and it wasn't early to him. He was that old. And He taught me a lot of this stuff, but what he called those seats was a one-size-fits-all. That's the Solo saddle. He called it a one-size-fits-all, and they do. But in that last video on seats, I put the buddy seat on here so I could take a passenger with me. And so it's set up for the buddy seat, but I never changed the adjustment on my seat post. I can go back and forth to either seat with the seat post set exactly the same. I haven't needed to change it with just me on it. And then these are the springs that come up and attach under the buddy seat for your passenger for the added weight. Okay, I think that does it. I think we got it done. Now, when I service the bike and I'm lubing the controls and all that, I just take this here grease gun and I go like that until I see grease come up around the post, which it is over on this side. So I know it's going into those holes, and it will work its way around and have grease all the way around that thing. And they really work well. They really, truly work well. So if you think you're too old to ride a rigid frame, get one with a stock seat post in it and learn to set it correctly. You'll love it. Anyway, that's it for today. I thank you for stopping by, and see you out on the road.